the unit 5 in applied physics. In unit 5, the important part is nuclear physics. You know the role of nuclear physics. All around us we are familiar with the nuclear radiations. Okay, so as we go to the nuclear radiation, just let us have a glance over the content in the presentation. Introduction to nuclear radiation, GM counter, nuclear reactors, particle accelerators, linear accelerators and cyclotron, synchrotron, that is electron and proton, medical applications of nuclear physics, radiation in our environment and its effects. So, introduction to nuclear radiations. Nuclear radiations, of course, when we say the radiations, there are two kinds of radiations. The radiations which can ionize the gases, and there are certain kind of radiations which cannot ionize also. But these, almost all nuclear radiations can ionize the gases. Okay. So then, what are the contents of nuclear radiation? So nuclear radiations take place due to the nuclear reactions. So when nuclear reactions take place, then there may be emission of alpha particles. So alpha particle is nothing but it is a helium nucleus which is shown here. It contains 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So here 2 positive charges and 2 neutrons are shown. Same thing is shown here. It's a helium nucleus. And sometimes in certain radiations, beta particle may be emitted. Beta particle is nothing but it is electron or positron. So here electron may be there or positron. Positron is nothing but its charge is positive, but the mass, everything will be same. Okay, same as electron, but its charge will be different. And also gamma radiations can also be emitted. Gamma radiations are nothing but they are electromagnetic radiations, high frequency electromagnetic radiations like X-rays. So beyond X-rays in the electromagnetic radiation which is a higher frequency, so these gamma radiations we come across. So gamma radiations can also be seen in the nuclear radiation. So these are the possible 3 kinds of radiations we may arrive, which may be obtained by the nuclear reaction. All these radiations cause ionization. So now, then how to count the particles? It means there are a variety of instruments which have been developed for the purpose of counting of these particles, alpha particles, beta particles, gamma particles. Among them, the very efficient counter and widely used throughout the globe, so that is GM counter. So let us see GM counter. GM counter is nothing but Geiger-Müller counter. It's a Geiger-Müller counter. Then its construction is nothing but that is shown here in this diagram. It consists of a rugged metal tube. So this is a metal tube. It is shown here. It's a metal tube. Okay. This is enclosed in a thin glass plate. Above this there is a thin glass plate that is not shown. The metal tube acts as a cathode. This metal tube acts as a cathode. However, at the center, a fine tungsten wire runs through the center of the tube. So this one. Okay. So it is at the center of the tube along its axis. And that is usually made of tungsten. And that acts as anode, that acts as anode. Okay, so it is connected to anode, means positive terminal, and this tube surface, tube, so its body is connected to negative terminal. This is connected to positive terminal. So high voltage is applied of the order of 1200 volt. Very high voltage is applied. So why exactly 1200 volt or nearer to 1200 volt we have to apply? We'll see in the performance diagram, that is a plateau diagram of functioning of this tube. Okay, so then here there is a mica window which allows the incident radiation, nuclear radiation, which can pass through this window and they enter inside this. This tube is filled with argon gas, which is inert gas, argon gas is filled with 90% of its volume, and 10% of its volume is filled with ethyl alcohol vapors, and the pressure maintained in order to fill up these gases is of the order of 0.1 atmosphere. So the voltage maintained is 1200 volt. Now let us discuss working of this. So working of the GM counter is based on the technique that when a radiation particle, nuclear particle with high energy is incident on a gas atom, it ionizes the gas atom. So then what is meant by ionization? Let us consider that it is a nucleus of the atom. You know that nucleus of the atom contains protons and neutrons. Around it so many orbits are there, as you studied in Bohr's theory, in which electrons are revolving. Okay. Now if there is a high energy radiation incident on it, it may be, that particle may be alpha particle, beta particle or gamma particle. Okay. So if one radiation particle is incident on the electron, then the outermost orbital electron gets detached from the atom. So this electron comes out, it gains certain kinetic energy and starts moving out of the atom, and this incident particle again goes out. So as usual this particle will be coming out as usual. Okay, because it has high energy, it will not come to rest, rather it will hit the electron and goes forward in the same direction almost, and the electron is getting detached from the atom. So now what happens? This electron is negatively charged, and the whole atom, which is a deficit of one electron, that becomes positive ion. This becomes positive ion. This is negative ion. So this kind of separation of ions from the atom is called ionization. This kind of ionization can take place with any particles, radiation particle like alpha, beta, gamma. Okay. So this is the principle used for functioning of the GM tube. So now when radiation is incident from the mica window, this is the mica window, whenever it is incident, so here is the argon gas filled, argon and alcohol gas filled. So what is the purpose of usage of alcohol inside this? So that will be discussed later. But when ionization radiation is incident from the mica window inside, it will be incident on the atoms of the argon gas, then ionization takes place. When ionization takes place, positive and negative ions are created. Positive ions will move towards this surface, which is a metal cylinder. It is a cathode. Okay. However, the electrons electrons will be moving towards this anode. Okay, moving towards, it is made of tungsten. Okay, those will be moving towards the anode. So this kind of opposite directional movement again gets accelerated. These two get accelerated, maybe positive ion or electron. These get accelerated by very high voltage, as I told you, of the order of 1200 volt, 1200 volt. So by the application of so much voltage, the particles, positive and negative ions will be getting accelerated. They gain very high velocity. You know the kinetic energy of the velocity, kinetic energy of the electron or any charged particle. If there is an electron with charge E getting accelerated by a potential phi volt, then this product Ep gives you the kinetic energy. So this is kinetic energy of the particle. So kinetic energy is given by E into phi. Okay. So if we increase the phi value, then kinetic energy goes on increasing. Means the ions get accelerated. The ions get accelerated with higher and higher velocity. Okay. So then when they are gaining much kinetic energy, during their movement, again they will collide with, or they will hit the other argon atoms. When they hit the argon atoms, again ionization of other atoms takes place. So again so many electrons are generated there, separated, and positive ions are generated. Okay. So this is called avalanche effect, what we say. Okay. So this kind of multiplication of the charges takes place. Increase of the charges takes place. It is called avalanche effect or cascade effect. One step to other step, continuation of multiplication of the negative and positive charges due to ionization. That is called cascade effect or avalanche effect. Increase in the making multiplication of the charges, that is avalanche effect. Okay. So now this results a massive electrical discharge causing a current pulse at V equal to 10 microvolt across R. It means because of this kind of opposite movement of the charged particles, there will be a current through the resistor, as we have shown in the previous diagram. Across this resistor we will get certain voltage. Okay. But that voltage is very small, of the order of 10 microvolt across R. So that voltage is very small, that has to be multiplied. So it can be multiplied with the amplifier. It can be increased from 5 to 50 volt as per the requirement. Okay. So this way each amplified signal produces one pulse. Each amplified signal produces one pulse, and therefore the pulses can be counted further, because it is further connected to the counter, and that counter counts how many pulses are there. Okay. So each pulse is obtained due to such a cascading effect of the electrons. Okay. On the other hand, when the argon ion, positive ions reach the cathode, then again they dislodge the secondary electrons. So whatever you have studied just now, that is due to ionization, the electrons are positive ion, electrons or argon ions are obtained due to the ionization effect. So those are primary electrons. The electrons obtained are primary electrons which are causing a pulse. But here the positive ions which are moving towards the anode, cathode, towards the cathode. When they hit the metal surface, some of the electrons from the metal surface get dislodged, because you know metal contains free electrons. So some of the free electrons may get dislodged. So when they get dislodged, again because of the applied potential, they start moving. Okay, during their movement, they collide the other neutral atoms of the argon, and this will result into the ionization again. Okay, if such kind of ionization occurs, then once again electrons and positive ions are obtained. These electrons or positive ions are obtained are called secondary electrons. These are secondary electrons. So these secondary electrons, again while moving also, again avalanche effect may take place. Enormous number of secondary electrons may be obtained. But once secondary electrons are obtained, they give rise to the distortion in the output. It means in the output the current pulse obtained is due to primary electrons or secondary electrons, that will not be known. So we have to avoid the generation of secondary electrons, because whatever pulse obtained, whatever count you are going to get, that should be only due to primary electrons, because primary electrons are obtained by incidence of one radiation particle. So our motive is to count the incident radiation particle, not generating only the electrons, and therefore we want primary electrons only and not secondary electrons. So that to avoid avoiding the secondary electrons itself is called quenching. Quenching means avoiding. So how to avoid it? For that, it has been discussed earlier, introduction of ethyl alcohol 10%. Ethyl alcohol vapors are introduced, so that ethyl alcohol vapors will absorb the electrons dislodged from the metal surface. Okay, so this will quench the generation of secondary electrons. So thus counts will be obtained only due to primary electrons. Okay, now in the process, when a pulse is obtained, pulse lasts for some duration. After getting one pulse, till the second pulse is obtained, in between first pulse and second pulse, there is a certain time gap. That time gap is counted by means of dead time and recovery time. So what is dead time? Dead time is the time during which incidence of the radiation particle will not be registered. It means that, as I told you, in between first pulse and second pulse, during the dead time, even though the incident radiation particle is there, it is entering into the tube, even it is colliding with the argon ions, argon atoms, that particle will not be registered there. That particle will not be detected, and the ionization effect produced by that particle will not be registered. Means further avalanche effect will not take place because of that particle, because of the particle incident there during the dead time. Okay, it means that even though any number of particles are incident during the dead time, they will not be registered, so that at the output count will be obtained due to the earlier particle only. Okay, now after dead time, again recovery time. It means from dead time to active mode, it has to, dead mode to active mode, it has to again activate. So to get activate, it takes certain time, and that is called recovery time. and recovery time is of the order of 100 microseconds. Dead time is also of the order of 100 microseconds. Sum of these two, dead time and recovery time, both together, it is called paralysis time. Okay. So now plateau graph for the functioning of GM tube. So if you plot the graph of applied voltage against the count rate, you will come to know that in the beginning up to 1000 volt almost there is no counts at all, but beyond 1000 volt if you go on increasing the voltage up to 1200 volt, the count rate is proportional, count rate is linear one, okay, linearly increasing. So linearly it increases up to certain value, but beyond 1200 volt if you go on increasing the voltage, you will see that flat portion of the curve is obtained and there is no further increase of the count rate. Okay. So this is called plateau region, So this plateau region persists up to 1500 volt. If you go on increasing the voltage, applied voltage beyond 1500 volt, again continuous increase in the count rate will happen. Okay. So this is called the continuous discharge region. So within this region 1200 to 1500 volt, within this region we have to apply the accelerating potential between anode and cathode in case of GM tube, so that in the plateau region the count rate will be flat, count rate will be almost constant, and the GM counter works efficiently. So the same regions have been discussed here. Okay. Now let us calculate, let us perform some calculations using the data given here in the numerical. So the numerical is that a GM counter has the counting rate of 500 counts per minute, 500 counts per minute. Students, remember the system given, per minute time given. What will be the average current in the circuit, average current to be calculated? If its wire collects, wire in the sense the central electrode, anode, collects 10⁸ electrons per discharge, for per discharge in the sense for one pulse, the electrons collected are 10⁸. Okay, then what will be the average current in the circuit? So that is to be calculated. So the hint is that the formula for average current, we know that the current is the rate of charge, that is Q by T. But here if we take that n number of charges are there obtained per unit time, then n number of charges means n number of electrons, and Q is the charge on that particle. Here we are considering the charged particle electron, and therefore instead of Q we have to take E. So you can write NERT. What is R? It is R is nothing but count rate. So that is 500 counts per minute, that count rate. Okay, divided by time given. So of course here time given is in minute, that has to be converted into second. Okay, so of course number of particles collected per discharge, that is N, that is given. So Q is the charge on the particle. So if you calculate substituting N, that is 10⁸, and in the place of Q, E, you know that E equal to E is nothing but charge on the electron, so that is equal to 1.6 into 10⁻⁻19 coulomb. So if you substitute Q, then R, count rate, so that count rate is given here. Okay, then time is time in seconds, that is 1 minute is given to be converted into second, that is 60 seconds. So if you substitute in this formula, you will get I equal to 1.33 into 10 to the minus 10 amperes. Okay, like this several problems you may solve. So now let us have a discussion about nuclear reactors. Nuclear reactors. Okay. Of course, how can we define nuclear reactor? Nuclear reactor is a system in which fission reaction takes place in a controlled and self-sustained manner. In a controlled and self-sustained manner, nuclear reaction, that is a nuclear fission reaction, takes place. So such a system is nuclear reactor. So of course there are two kinds of nuclear reactors. The one may be considered as a research reactor, where neutron beam can be obtained, or other particles, that is particles may be nuclear particles may be obtained. However, the other kind of nuclear reactor is energy generation, for sake of energy generation. That means in fission reaction, not only the particles, along with that enormous amount of heat energy is generated. That energy you can utilize for the generation of electricity. So for power generation also the reactors can be used. Okay, so these are the most two important applications, and accordingly the nuclear reactors are categorized: research reactors and power reactors, like this. Okay, now what are the parts, important parts or blocks of the reactor? Let us see according to this diagram. First one, moderator blocks with slots for fuel channels. Okay, here this is the central part of the nuclear reactor, which consists of moderator. So this is all moderator only, in which at the center there are certain blocks left, and those blocks are for the fuel. Okay, so these are called fuel channels. And the fuel element in sustained steel zirconium metal, it means that here fuel is introduced into zirconium metal casing. So such a here either stainless steel or zirconium casing may be there, that is introduced here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 are the metal casings shown here. That is it may be made of zirconium or stainless steel. So inside that the fuel is stored. Okay, then inlet and outlet are provided for passing of the liquid for cooling the system, because as I told you, enormous amount of heat is generated in fission reaction. So that system, this core part, it is called a core part. That core contains moderator as well as fuel element. Okay, so this should be kept cold. Okay, it should be kept at normal temperature. So for cooling it, some coolant liquid is passed, and it is the hot liquid coming out. Okay, it is the outlet, it is inlet for the coolant. Okay, then a reactor, what just now you have seen. So reactor essentially consists of 7 components. So what are those 7 components? Fuel, moderator, reflector, coolant, control rod, structural and cladding materials, and reactor shielding. So while choosing each and every component, we should be very careful. So one by one, let us see now. So first component, when we say fuel. So fuel is nothing but usually used is a natural uranium. So when we say natural uranium, that natural uranium consists of 99.3% of uranium 238. Uranium 238. However, 0.7% of uranium 235. You know the difference between uranium 238, uranium 235. These are the isotopes. Students, you know what are isotopes? Isotopes are nothing but they are the elements having the same atomic number, but mass number is different for them. Okay, so such isotopes, uranium isotopes are there. So this isotope uranium 238 is used with 99.3% of its volume, and uranium 235 is filled at 0.7% only. So such ready-made that natural uranium consists of this composition. But if we want to use this natural uranium for the reactors as the fuel, then we have to enrich it. What is meant by enriching? Enriching means making rich with the introduction of uranium 235. Making it rich with the uranium 235. So as you go on increasing the content of uranium 235 in the natural uranium, there will be increase in the efficiency of the reactor, but up to a certain percent only we can add. So to the highest level of 3% only we can add uranium 235. Okay, so enriching means increasing uranium 235 content up to 3% in the natural uranium is called enriching. Okay, such enriched natural uranium itself is fuel. Such fuel has to be used in the present case for the reactor as the fuel. Okay, now second important component in case of reactors is moderators. So we know that when nuclear fusion reaction takes place, it emits neutrons. When neutrons are obtained, almost all neutrons are fast moving neutrons. They are fast moving neutrons. But if they are fast neutrons, fusion inducing probability is very less. Even though they are the neutrons, fast neutrons, they have sufficient kinetic energy, but they can produce very less, they have the less inducing probability, fusion inducing probability. So then no use at all. It means we have to reduce their velocity. We have to reduce their kinetic energy. Okay. Then how can we reduce? That blockwise it is discussed here. Nuclear fusion reaction produces fast neutrons. Fast neutrons in the sense what will be their kinetic energy? Approximately it is of the order of MeV, million electron volt. Students, you know what is million electron volt. So million is 10⁶ electron volt. So much high kinetic energy will be there, 10⁶ electron volt. Okay, such very high kinetic energy neutrons, fast neutrons are there, but fusion inducing probability is less for them. We have to reduce their velocity, we have to reduce their kinetic energy. And two methods are there for us. We can choose, that is scattering these fast moving neutrons by scattering with heavy nuclei or light nuclei. Two options are there for us. We have to choose the best one among these two. Let us see the merits and demerits in both the cases. If such fast moving neutrons are scattered means they are passed through the heavy nuclei, then again whatever we will obtain the neutron beam, those neutrons will be again fast neutrons only, no change in kinetic energy takes place. No change in kinetic energy in the sense fast neutrons, in the sense already we have known that the fission inducing probability is very less. Okay, again no use by this method. Then let us come to the scattering with the light nuclei. If we choose the light nuclei, through the light nuclei, if the fast neutrons are passed, means scattered, then the scattered beam obtained neutron beam will be slow neutrons. It contains slow neutrons. But you know that slow neutrons have the high fission inducing probability. So fission inducing probability is very high for the slow neutron, which is wanted thing for us. However, this is unwanted thing. Okay. So for this purpose, what we can do is we have to scatter the fast neutrons through the light nuclei. So then what are the light nuclei chosen for serving the purpose for slowing down the neutrons? The possible ones are, so those light neutrons which are used here are called moderators. So moderation means reducing the kinetic energy of the neutrons. Okay. So for moderation, these are the elements used, these are the materials used. Okay. So what are the possible materials used here? Ordinary water you can use, heavy water you can use, graphite or beryllium. Okay. Let us consider the first one. If we use ordinary water, it's a good moderator of course, but high neutron absorption cross section, in the sense the probability of absorption of the emitted neutron is high in case of ordinary water. If the obtained neutrons are absorbed, then the reaction will not be controlled and no use at all. So that even though it is a good moderator, it absorbs the neutrons, so that we cannot use this one, ordinary water. Let us come to the second one, heavy water. In heavy water, that heavy water is the best liquid moderator. Okay, it can reduce the kinetic energy of the neutrons very well, and no absorption of neutrons also. Heavy water does not absorb the neutrons, and therefore this is the best moderator. Okay, now coming to graphite, solid moderator. It is liquid moderator, it is solid moderator. So graphite is the best solid moderator, and it does not absorb the neutrons, and therefore graphite can be used as a best solid moderator. One more option is there for us, beryllium, that can also be used. It's a good moderator. It doesn't absorb the neutrons, but it's a very expensive and toxic. Okay, it is expensive and toxic, so that usage of beryllium is also ruled out. So for us, we can opt heavy water and graphite, these two as the best moderators. If we want liquid moderator, heavy water; solid moderator, graphite can be used for moderation of these neutrons to slow down them. Okay. So now coming to the next component, reflectors. Okay. In the reactor, some neutrons obtained will be moving in random directions also. Many neutrons obtained will be moving in random directions. Those will not be lost in the surroundings. So they should be reused again the process of fission reaction. Therefore, we do use reflectors. What are reflectors? Here, some neutrons escape from the reactor by penetration, because penetration power is high for the neutrons also because of high energy, so that they may escape out, but we have to avoid the escaping by coating inner surface of the reactor with these reflectors. Okay, if the inner surface of the reactor is coated with nickel or thorium, then it will reflect the neutrons again. When the neutrons are reflected, again those are reused for the process, and therefore those will not be lost at all. Energy loss will not occur. So usually used reflectors are nickel or thorium. So coating of these materials will be made, coating of inner surface of the reactor will be made with these materials, nickel or thorium, so that there won't be loss of neutrons. Next, coolant. So here, as you know that enormous amount of heat is generated in case of fission reaction. So here, fission reaction in reactors causes intense heat. Then intense heat must be reduced first. Okay, so for reducing intense heat inside the reactor part, that core part should be maintained at normal temperature. So for cooling that, coolants are used. So what are the possible coolants? That is ordinary water may be used, or heavy water, or liquid metals. So these can be used for cooling the for reducing the intense heat, so that we will get reactor at normal temperature. On the other hand, the intense heat generated can also be used for power generation purpose. That is, whatever obtained heat energy is there, that can be utilized to get the intense heat can be utilized to get the steam, and that steam may be directly connected to turbine. By that, generation of electricity can be done. So this way the intense heat can be managed, generated intense heat can be managed, that is by utilizing it for the generation of electricity, and by cooling the reactor by passing the coolants. Okay, so you should remember the coolants. What are the coolants? Ordinary water, heavy water, or liquid metal. Okay. Then next part, control rods. So in the reactor core itself, control rods are to be introduced. So what is the purpose of usage of control rods? Just to control the reaction. Control the reaction, to control the rate of reaction. Okay, so rate of reaction should be uniform, so that rate of reaction should not exceed a particular value, or it should not fall below. So in order to maintain a uniform reaction rate, control rods are obtained. So since neutrons are responsible for progress of chain reaction, because continuous generation of neutrons induces the fission process, and because of continuous increase in the fusion process chain reaction, the rate of the reaction increases suddenly. So we have to reduce. It means we have to make absorb the excess neutrons. So how can we do it? That can be done by introducing extra rods inside the core region, so that the neutrons obtained will be absorbed. Excess neutrons obtained will be absorbed. Okay, and that can be maintained till the normal rate of reaction is obtained. Immediately that control rod can be removed out. Once it is removed out, again sustained reaction, that is controlled reaction, will be continued. Okay, so here it is discussed. Since neutrons are responsible for progress of chain reaction, so cadmium or boron rods, here material used are cadmium or boron rods are inserted into the reactor core to absorb excess number of neutrons, and then they can be removed out of the core region. So control rods may be removed whenever required. So, and the rate is maintained to be same. Okay. So whenever you want to reduce the rate of reaction, the control rod has to be introduced, and whenever you have to maintain the uniformity in the rate, and you don't want to make the rate of reaction to fall down, the rate of reaction should not fall down. So at that time immediately you have to remove the rod, so that controlled reaction is possible. So you must remember cadmium or boron rods are used for this purpose. Okay. Structural or cladding materials, these are another important components. So of course, what is the purpose for using, as the words themselves indicate, structural means in fabrication of the structure, the materials used with the mechanical strength, proper mechanical strength, and cladding material means outside material, boundary, outside surface materials for the reactor, for the entire reactor. Okay. So for mechanical support for holding the fuel, for holding the fuel, proper mechanical strength of the material is required, and therefore the structural proper material is used, and for that purpose that either zirconium metal or stainless steel metal tube is used. Inside that fuel is introduced, so to hold the fuel, and for coolant also, for passing the coolant, there should not be the leakage of the coolant. Proper mechanical material must be used, structural material must be used. And for control rods, control rods, okay, and for measuring instruments, okay, inside the outside the core. So in the unit of the nuclear reactor, at one side you are going to fix the meter for the measurement of maybe rate of the reaction or anything, count rate, like that, something. If you want to use the measuring instrument, you have to hold it properly so that it can tolerate the temperature generated there. So that proper type of material should be used there. Okay. So the purpose for usage of this structural material is for mechanical support of holding fuel, coolant, control rods, and measuring instruments, right? Okay. Then we know that uranium readily reacts with air, so uranium particles should not be found outside in the air. So, and it also reacts with water and other fluids, so cladding is required. By any means, that uranium particle should not come out of the region of the reactor, so that at the outside, suppose this is the reactor part, then outside it there should be proper cladding. Cladding is nothing but it is discussed here. Cladding prevents neutron escape. So zirconium cladding, zirconium material cladding is used. So with the help of zirconium metal, such a cladding, such a wall, it's a metal wall. So such a metal wall is prepared. That metal wall will prevent the uranium escaping out of it. And so titanium can also be used, but it is very expensive. And the next one is nuclear shielding. For nuclear shielding, so two types of shielding are there outside this cladding. So this is the cladding, outside this cladding. So this is one wall, it is a metal wall, and outside it one more wall will also come, that is a concrete wall, concrete wall. Okay, so this is for biosafety. So that is biological shielding, it is called biological shielding. Okay, it is biological shield. And the thermal shielding, wall of steel. So this is steel wall will be there. So this will prevent the thermal shielding. It will serve as the purpose of thermal shielding. Means heat energy will not be transmitted out of the steel wall. However, this biological shielding is provided with a 2 meter thick control wall. Concrete wall. Concrete wall. So because of much thickness, concrete wall will provide the safety, that is biological safety.